questions. Question orale, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we already knew that intelligence services have stated that the Beijing Communist regime disbursed $114,000 to the Trudeau Foundation in order to influence the Liberal leader, who's now the Prime Minister of Canada. We've now learnt that it was his brother who signed the agreement to receive this money. Does the Prime Minister agree to invite his brother to bear witness before a parliamentary committee in order to answer to questions? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. Mr. Speaker, like the Prime Minister has already confirmed a number of times, he has no relation with this non-partisan organisation. He hasn't had any relations for 10 years.
L'opposition.
Well, it's definitely a family business for this Prime Minister, whether it was the We Charity paying his brother and mother money, the Prime Minister claiming to know nothing about it as he handed $500 million over to that organization, or the Trudeau Foundation, which got $140,000 from the dictatorship in Beijing for the specific purpose of influencing his decisions in politics. But now we know that his brother, his own brother, was the one that negotiated and signed the deal to receive the money. Will the Prime Minister accept to call his brother to a parliamentary committee to answer questions about this?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
The Leader of the Opposition knows well that the Prime Minister has not been involved with that foundation for approximately a decade, that his fixation with the Prime Minister's family is well known for its partisan interests, and that he wishes to pursue those partisan interests, Mr. Speaker. But the Prime Minister and the government is not engaged with that foundation.
Leader of the Opposition.
Well, if the Prime Minister has nothing to hide and no relationships whatsoever with the foundation, he'll have no problem inviting his brother to testify before a parliamentary committee under oath about the money that the foundation received for the specific purpose of influencing the Prime Minister. Now, on to another Liberal falsehood. They told us that the carbon tax would make emissions go down. Well, the new report out shows that for the most recent years, emissions went up. Wow. The tax goes up, the emissions goes up, and now Canadians are expected to pay a net $1,500. Given that everything they've said about this tax is false, will they axe the tax?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and the Conservatives just don't seem to. Mr. Speaker, the climate rebate puts more money in people's pockets. 8 out of 10 families will be better off. Look at page 5 of the original PBO report, Mr. Speaker. What won't leave families better off is investing in cryptocurrency, Mr. Speaker. That was reckless advice by the Leader of the Opposition. I've invited him to stand in this House and apologize. Now, for the 4th time, will he stand up now and apologize to Canadians?
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Another falsehood. I'll read directly from the report written by the Parliamentary Budget Officer who was appointed by this Prime Minister. On page 3, he says that, for example, an Ontario family will pay on average $1,820 more in carbon tax costs than they get back in these phony rebate checks. Prince Edward Island, $1,500. Newfoundland and Labrador, $1,300. I could go on. In every single province, the majority of people pay far more in taxes than they get back in benefits from this scam, Mr. Speaker. Given that it's been false, won't they axe the tax?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And good news, Mr. Speaker. On April 14th, climate rebate checks started to arrive in people's mailboxes. A family of 4 in my home province of Manitoba will receive $1,000. That's $250 quarterly, Mr. Speaker. That's going to help with cash flow. That's going to help with affordability. The Conservatives don't seem to be interested in either, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
According to a poll in Quebec, we've heard that now 74% of Quebecers say that they are finding it difficult to purchase gas and other basic goods such as groceries because of inflationist taxes and deficits that are increasing the cost of life for all Quebecers. This government has decided to add $60 million of extra oil on the inflationary fire. Will the government finally cancel these taxes and inflationist deficits? The Honourable Minister for Innovation. Mr. Speaker, I think the Leader of the Opposition should better listen. Canadians, in the last budget, there are 3 clear measures that affect, in a positive way, Quebecers and Canadians. First of all, our government has proposed a grocery break to help those in need. Canadians have told us, work on healthcare, it's a priority. So we're working on it. Third of all, Canadians said build the economy for the future, and that is what we are doing to help Canadians, and I think that perhaps the Honourable Member should listen to Canadians. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, the House has voted in favour of a public and independent commission of inquiry into Chinese interference. The public also supports it, but instead of listening to this consensus, the Prime Minister is hiding behind his special rapporteur, his good friend David Johnston. Mr. Johnston is an ex-Trudeau Foundation official who was itself hit by a Chinese interference scandal. It is therefore an ex-Trudeau Foundation member who received money from China who is going to tell the government how to avoid China's influence. You can't make this kind of thing up. Does the Prime Minister realise that the credibility of this approach is zero? The Honourable Minister for Interparliamentary Affairs. Mr. Speaker, we always like the plays on words from our honourable colleague. What we don't like, however, is that when claims are made that the government has not acted from the get-go in order to counter potential foreign interference. As we have always said, we've implemented a series of measures. They have evolved based on evolving threats. The Right Honourable David Johnston's work is part of this exercise, and we are looking forward to implementing his recommendations. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, in her testimony on Friday, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, did not tell us very much. 2 hours to tell the committee members that she would not say anything. But she did tell us that everything she knows, the Prime Minister also knows. And she also told us that the Prime Minister is very attentive to CSIS reports. So, the Prime Minister has known about the allegations of Chinese interference in the election from the beginning. If he refuses a commission of inquiry, does he not realise that he is sending a message that he has something to hide? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Chief of Staff stated what the Prime Ministers and other ministers have said from the very beginning. That is, the government has been informed a number of times about security and intelligence organisations of the threat of foreign interference. And that's exactly the reason for which we have acted. And that's what the previous government did not do. We've also said, Mr. Speaker, that the Right Honourable David Johnston is better placed to have a look at all elements in order to give advice to the government. And we are looking forward to following his advice.
For Burnaby South.
In the pandemic, public sector workers stepped up and provided the much-needed help to give Canadians a lending hand in a difficult time. Now these workers are being impacted by inflation, and they don't want to go to strike. They want to work. So the government has a responsibility to negotiate fairly. So will the government get serious and negotiate a fair contract that respects the public service workers?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister.
Public service from the PSAC provide important services to Canadians, and the government values their work. The government is committed to reaching agreements at the bargaining table that are fair for the employees and reasonable for taxpayers. We have a good offer on the table, and there's enough ground to reach a deal. Canadians expect both parties to bargain in good faith and find compromise, and that's what we're doing today, Mr. Speaker. Merci.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Pendant la temps difficile de la
The public service delivered the goods during the pandemic, and now they deserve respect. They are struck by inflation, like other workers. Is the government going to take these negotiations seriously and negotiate a contract that respects these public service workers? the Honourable President of the Treasury Board. Mr. Speaker, public servants from the PSAC do excellent work, and the government appreciates their work. We are therefore committed to signing an agreement at the negotiating table, an agreement that is equitable and fair for public servants and good for the taxpayer. We have a good offer on the table, and there are a sufficient number of commonalities for us to be able to come to an agreement. Canadians expect us to work together, and that is what we are doing today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary, Forest Lawn.
Liberals misled Canadians for 8 years about their carbon tax scam. They claimed that it would put more into the pockets of Canadians than what they paid into it, but the Liberal Environment Minister admitted that they misled Canadians, and the PBO backed that up in his current report on the carbon tax scam. Our hardworking truck drivers are going to get slammed with an extra $150 in cost every single time they fuel up because of this scam. This carbon tax scam is going to cost Canadians more, so Liberals can continue to virtue signal and fill up their own coffers. Why doesn't the Prime Minister stop virtue signaling and stop punishing Canadians for eating, heating and living and scrap the scam?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, good news is coming to Atlantic Canadians. On July 1st, the climate action rebates will be coming to all of the Atlantic provinces. That is going to mean $1,000 or more to a family of four. Mr. Speaker, even the Premier of New Brunswick likes it. At least one Conservative likes it, Mr. Speaker. And I quote him, "We need to make a choice that is in the best interests of New Brunswickers. What this does right now is provide relief from inflation. We agree with the Premier of New Brunswick. I wish the Conservatives would too."
Honourable member for Calgary, Forest Lawn.
They should slap a not as advertised label every single time the Liberals and the NDP talk about their carbon tax scam. They know for a fact, and it's backed up by the PBO, that on average Canadians will pay an extra $1,500. The PBO also proved it wrong, and emissions have went up. They claimed that they would fix the environment. That was false. They said that Canadians would be better off. That was false, and the Liberal minister admitted that they misled Canadians for 8 years. 1 in 5 Canadians are skipping meals. 1.5 million Canadians are going into a food bank in a single month. Let's get real. This is a tax plan. Let's scrap the scam and give Canadians a break.
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to correct the record. The honourable member knows that Canadians will receive more than they actually pay as a result of the increased prices. The only thing that the Conservatives' argument hedges upon is the belief that the alternative is to take no action.
I'm having a hard time hearing the Honourable Minister. I'm sure everyone wants to hear the answer. The Honourable Minister of Immigration, please continue.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives' argument rests upon the premise that the alternative to putting a price on pollution is to do nothing to fight climate change. Every measure that they would put forward has a greater cost than putting a price on pollution. Look to the court decisions, including those from Western Canada, that said putting a price on pollution is the most effective way to combat climate change. We found a way to make it more affordable for families at the same time.
Honourable member for Thornhill.
They still claim that families would get more back than they paid in the carbon tax. We know that's not true. The Minister of Environment finally admitted the truth. It turns out that they don't get more. They also claim that the carbon tax works, but we know otherwise. New data says emissions have increased 12 million tons in the last reporting year, and still they plan to triple the tax. How many more increases is it going to take before they realize that the carbon tax doesn't work, it doesn't reduce emissions, it lowers our economic output, and it hurts hardworking Canadians who can't pay their bills?
The Honourable Minister for Families.
It's hard to hear the Conservatives talk about families because at every opportunity they have voted against hardworking Canadian families in this House, whether it was regards to the Canada Child Benefit, whether it was in regards to the Canada Workers Benefit, whether it was in regards to the Canada Housing Benefit. Dental, Mr. Speaker, that has helped over 250,000 children go to the dentist already. Or, Mr. Speaker, how about the Canada Child Care Agreements that have lowered fees by 50% right across the country? Mr. Speaker, if the Conservatives cared about Canadian families, they would do more to support them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Thornhill.
I understand why the member opposite doesn't want to talk about the carbon tax. The proof is in the numbers. The carbon tax doesn't work. It doesn't leave Canadian families better off. The average family will pay $710 this year thanks to their new increases. Emissions went up and economic output is down because of it. At a time where every Canadian could use a break, the only ones better off are these Liberals who get more Canadian tax dollars with no actual results. This isn't an environmental plan. When will the minister admit to this House what he already told Canadians on TV?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism.
Conservatives are so focused on a price on pollution, despite the fact that it's the best market mechanism we have to get to a net zero economy, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that every time we've come to this House to reduce taxes on Canadians, how did the Conservatives vote? Against. When it came to lowering taxes on the middle class 3 times, how did they vote? Against. When it came to lowering taxes on working Canadians, how did they vote, Mr. Speaker? Against. When it came to lowering taxes on seniors and dental benefits, how are they going to vote? We know the answer. Against.
L'honorable député de
The honourable member for Charles-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, this morning we've learnt in a poll that 74% of Quebecers find it hard to buy basic products. 45% of Quebecers state that they are $200 or less from not being able to pay their financial obligations. What is the Prime Minister's solution? This is what he said recently in a public meeting. If you use your credit card to go back to school, or if you accrue debt to build an extension to your house, you could sell your house for more. Now a question for the Liberal caucus members. Isn't that a bit awkward? The Honourable Minister for Innovation. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. It seems that the colleagues from across the way haven't read the latest budget we presented. What we have done, and if they would like to be on this side of the House one day, I would suggest that they listen to Canadians. That's what we did. Canadians have clearly told us, help us with the cost of living. It's the first measure found in the budget, the grocery rebate. The second measure was for healthcare. Canadians want to have family physicians. Then it's work on the economy. We announced 460, the Honourable Member for Charlesbourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. I don't know if the Minister understood my question very well. This morning, we learned that 74% of Quebecers are saying they find it hard to make ends meet. They are within $200 of not being able to pay their financial obligations. But the Prime Minister, during the same meeting that I mentioned, said that if you make investments that will have a good ROI, then you'll have more money. Well, I don't really understand what he's trying to get at. He's telling people, spend money with your credit card. But does the Prime Minister not understand that he has indebted the country? And that's what he's proposing to the country, to Canadians. Does the Minister agree with this point of view and this way forward? The Honourable Minister for Sports. Mr. Speaker, I would like to reiterate what my excellent colleague mentioned earlier. We are listening to Canadians, and we know that people are finding it hard to make ends meet. And that's why our budget takes into account these difficulties, brings help. We also help people with their groceries, with healthcare. We help people with dental care, so that dental care is accessible for families. So, Mr. Speaker, all they have to do is vote for our budget, and everything will go much better for Canadians. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, the Union des Producteurs Agricoles is sounding the alarm. Rising costs are putting the next generation of farmers at risk. If the government does not act, 1 in 10 businesses will close within 12 months. 1 in 10 farms lost within 12 months. Mr. Speaker, the federal government can create an agriculture emergency account similar to that implemented during COVID. It can also extend the repayment period of the existing programme. It can postpone the repayment schedule for 2023 by 2 years. What is the federal government going to do today to prevent 1 in 10 farms from dying off before our very eyes within a year? The Honourable Minister for Agriculture. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have seen the results of this poll, and different studies, and this is very concerning. It is very concerning to see that we may lose a number of farmers and producers, and that's where we're working in collaboration with the government of Quebec on a number of options. We've just signed a Canadian partnership to the tune of $3.5 billion, $500 million more than before. When the Prime Minister met members of the UPA, he said that we would have targeted measures for those who find it hard to survive this year. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. We have to act rapidly, Mr. Speaker. No matter how much people talk about the importance of local food resilience, it doesn't matter if we let our farms disappear. People talk every day about inflation and interest rates, but never about the farmers who are suffering from them. According to UPA figures, 50% of farm businesses expect their economic situation to deteriorate further this year. Is it normal, according to the federal government, for our farmers to go into debt to feed our world? Is this how we are going to convince our young people to take over our farms, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, yes, we have to recognise the excellent work done by farmers and producers. They work very hard, and they know that they feed us even through these difficult times. So we want to help them in a number of times in the last budget. You saw, Mr. Speaker, that we have increased the interest-free anticipated payment period amount, $350,000 without interest. Now we have also clarified the elements with regards to intergenerational transfers. The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Loire. Mr. Speaker, I appeal to the very humanity and compassion of the members of this government. I'm asking them to set aside all partisanship and give royal recommendation to Bill C-215 on employment insurance sickness benefits. As we speak, there are women and men who are struggling with illness and who need these extended benefits. The House voted unanimously to extend benefits. The majority of elected representatives voted in favour of this bill. The only thing missing is a royal recommendation and royal assent. Will the government members give it? The Honourable Minister for Families.
Speaker, we understand that EI benefits need to be fairer, more responsive, and more adaptable to the needs of Canada's evolving workforce. And that's why we continue to be committed to comprehensively modernizing the system. We have already extended EI sickness benefits from 15 to 26 weeks. And with Budget 2023, we propose extending support for seasonal workers until October 2024. Mr. Speaker, we have always said we need to get EI reform right. It is a priority, and we are on it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, last week a 17-year-old boy was stabbed to death on a bus in Surrey, British Columbia, this being the third stabbing on public transit in BC over the last month, and only 2 weeks after a 16-year-old boy was stabbed to death at a Toronto subway station. And Edmonton is reporting a 53% spike of attacks on public transit. The violent crime surge in this country has reached into every corner, Mr. Speaker. When will the Liberal NDP coalition finally wake up and end their dangerous catch-and-release policies that are making our streets so unsafe?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Well, first, Mr. Speaker, I want to remind my colleague that the Minister of Justice and myself met with our provincial and territorial counterparts and will be moving expeditiously to revisit our bail system. But more than that, Mr. Speaker, our government has invested close to $1 billion to support law enforcement. What did the Conservatives do on each of those occasions? They voted against, Mr. Speaker. We put $450 million to stop the illegal flow of guns into this country by reinforcing the CBSA. What did the Conservatives do, Mr. Speaker? Nothing. They voted against. If they want to take crime seriously, they should support the policies and the investments of this government. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kamloops, Thompson Caribou.
I highlight two recent times that catch and release has failed victims of intimate partner violence. In one instance, an alleged abuser allegedly beat and repeatedly breached restraining orders against a partner. The result, multiple bail hearings and a likely terrified partner. In another case, a woman who was threatened, firearms were involved. The result, a bail hearing and a terrified partner. When will this Liberal government end catch and release so that vulnerable women will no longer become terrified partners?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve to feel safe, and we as a government are taking action that they will. Mr. Speaker, Bill C-75 already reduced the burden of proof in intimate partner violence cases when it came to bail. Mr. Speaker, we're going beyond that. We have met with our provincial and territorial counterparts to bring reform to the bail system, but we recognize that this is something that we have to work on with the provinces. Obviously, we will take action in areas of our jurisdiction, but we will move, Mr. Speaker, and we will find a solution together.
L'honorable député de Bellechasse.
The honourable member for Bellechasse, Lévis, Mr. Speaker. In the 8 years since the Prime Minister took office, our streets have become less safe. Under the Liberals, violent crime increased by 32%. By comparison, when the Conservatives were in power, violent crime was down by 23%. Mr. Speaker, because of this Prime Minister's lax policies, criminals are on the streets instead of in jail. Will this Prime Minister finally take the problem seriously and protect citizens instead of criminals? The Honourable Minister for Justice. Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve to feel safe and to be safe, and that is exactly what we are doing by working with provinces and territories, Mr. Speaker, bringing amendments to the conditional release service. And we will invest in the system to combat violent crime in society, Mr. Speaker. Michael Mondeva of the Supreme Court of Canada has asked us to work more on violent crime, and that's what we will do, Mr. Speaker.
I just got back from a 2-week cross-country tour, hearing from Canadians who are struggling to find a home they can afford in the city where they can work and raise a family. From Victoria to Toronto to Hamilton to Halifax, renters and people who want to own their own home are having to compete with corporate landlords who buy up affordable housing stock and drive up the cost of housing. Successive Liberals and Conservatives have failed to crack down on these corporate landlords who are fueling the housing crisis, and families are paying the price. What and when are the Liberals going to stop the profiteering of housing so that families can find a home?
The Honourable Minister for Housing.
I don't think my time for the answer is actually enough to articulate all the things we've done. We've done so much to enable families to access homes. Introducing the Canada Housing Benefit, putting together a 1% tax on vacant homes owned by non-Canadian, non-resident owners, putting together a ban on foreign owners of Canadian residential real estate, investing billions of dollars to build more affordable housing, including deeply affordable housing through the Rapid Housing Initiative, and so on and so forth. We will not relent until each and every Canadian has access to a safe and affordable place to call home.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Griesbach.
Mr. Speaker, Muslim and Jewish people across Canada are increasingly worried about the rise in hate crimes against their communities. Last week, we saw an outrageous act of hate committed against a Markham mosque that could have turned deadly, Mr. Speaker. Synagogues have also been a target of hateful acts, and the police report hate crimes have increased a shocking 67%, Mr. Speaker. Will the Liberals commit to protecting all Canadians by supporting the NDP's call for an emergency debate on recent Islamophobic and anti-Semitic attacks?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate this comment from the member opposite because it's really important to outline what is taking place in our society right now. Notwithstanding that this is the holy month of Ramadan, notwithstanding that people are thinking about inclusiveness and diversity in our society, we remain seeing grotesque acts of violence and hatred directed towards Muslims in this country. This kind of intolerance has to stop. What we are doing as a government and what we're doing hopefully as all parliamentarians is challenging those acts when they occur, speaking out against them, and working towards legislation and policies that will invest in the security of places of worship and ensuring that people are able to celebrate who they are in this country and have freedom of worship. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Mississauga, Streetsville.
Last week, my colleagues and I had the privilege of welcoming a charter flight of 353 Afghans who arrived in Toronto. These are Afghans who supported Canada's mission in Afghanistan, family members of former interpreters, and privately sponsored refugees. Though some may have found refuge in Canada, many continue to face risks in leaving Afghanistan or simply making their journey under the hands of the Taliban. Can the Minister of Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship update us on our work to get them to safety?
Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague, the honourable member, not just for her question, but for being on hand to welcome that chartered flight, which marks the arrival of the 30,000th Afghan refugee in this country. Mr. Speaker, to put this into perspective, I live in a town with less than 10,000 people, repeated 3 times over. That many people have been given a new lease on life, but we know that there are thousands of people who remain trapped in Afghanistan who are being persecuted today at the hands of the Taliban. We're going to continue to do everything we can to get them to safety, and we will not waver until we successfully meet our goal of resettling at least 40,000 Afghan refugees by the end of this year.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff told committee that the Prime Minister reads everything. We know that the Prime Minister received a February 2020 memo that, according to Global News, alerted him of an election interference network by Beijing involving at least 11 candidates and the clandestine transfer of funds. The Prime Minister has repeatedly claimed he knows nothing about this. However, given that he reads everything, we now know that that isn't true. Why is the Prime Minister misleading Canadians? What does he have to hide?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
With great regret, I'm afraid it's my colleague who's misleading this chamber and Canadians. It's the Prime Minister and this government who has continually said that we take foreign interference seriously, which is why we have put in place the people, the resources, the authorities, and in addition to that, the transparency to shine a light in the way in which we're protecting our institutions, our economies, and Canadians most importantly, Mr. Speaker. And I encourage my colleague to support the budget, which also will include more resources for the RCMP and other law enforcement agencies to protect Canadians from foreign interference. I look forward to that day when he supports a budget on this side of the House.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
The Trudeau Foundation accepted a gift of $200,000 from an agent for Beijing's dictatorship, and senior PMO officials were made aware of the gift and where it came from. The Prime Minister's Chief of Staff told committee that the Prime Minister is briefed on everything and nothing is withheld from him. On what date did the Prime Minister become aware that the Trudeau Foundation accepted a $200,000 gift from the communist dictatorship in Beijing?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I've already made it clear in this House that the Prime Minister over the last 10 years has not had any involvement with that foundation. And the member opposite is asserting, and let's go with the heart of what he's asserting. He's asserting that this government would welcome the interference of a foreign country. That is absolutely absurd. The fact that it would be clapped for is disgusting. There is every single member of this House dedicated to ensuring Canadian democracy. The member opposite, myself, and every member has firmed themselves to protect and defend Canadian democracy, and every member of this House will continue to do so.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
Just to be clear, the Trudeau Foundation is government funded, and Liberal governments have in the past, and the Liberal government still has the ability to appoint members to the foundation. So it must be a coincidence that after Beijing's gift to the Trudeau Foundation, that the Prime Minister met with the front men who signed the check on behalf of the communist dictatorship and gave them a meeting where they had direct access to influence the Prime Minister. This Prime Minister. So why are shady deals and influence opportunities for dictators the priority for this Liberal Prime Minister?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
What is clear, Mr. Speaker, is the priority of the party opposite is to attack not-for-profits, independent organizations, the CBC, the media.
It's a government institution. The Privacy Act.
I'm just waiting for everyone to calm down. Order. The Honourable Government House Leader, you have another 25 seconds.
Mr. Speaker, on the floor of the House of Commons, members are protected by privilege. They have the opportunity to say anything that they wish. But when they are swinging their bats aimlessly in partisan advantage, they are attacking not-for-profit or nonpartisan foundations. They are attacking organizations like the CBC. They're attacking free and independent media. They seem to have no care whatsoever what or who they attack for their partisan ends. Mr. Speaker, it is not becoming of this place.
L'honorable député de Mégantic.
The honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Well, Mr. Speaker, the communist regime in China feels that it can influence the Prime Minister using strawman donations and other forms of influence. And we saw that 2 people on the board of the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation were appointed by people associated with this government. And according to the last annual report, the Prime Minister is still associated with the foundation. And in fact, accepting that donation directly violated the Income Tax Act. And so, will we hear more about the use of straw men for these donations? The Honourable Minister. We know that the other side is engaging in partisan politicking. And they are prolonging the type of partisanship that does not work for our economy and that does not work for our democracy. It's very clear that every MP here, both on our side and the other side, are loyal to Canada and are very clear on the fact that our responsibilities as members of Parliament are our highest responsibility. And that's why I'm here, that's why they're here. The Honourable Member for Laurentides-Labelle. Mr. Speaker, the ice storm ruined Easter for many Quebecers. They either didn't have power or they were working day and night to get it back. The Bloc Québécois stands with all those who suffered harms and damage. And Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister offered federal assistance, and we appreciate that. But we should remember that Ottawa made the same commitment during the ice storm 25 years ago, but never forked out the money. Ottawa still owes us $484 million. Will the Prime Minister start by settling that debt?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And the disaster financial assistance arrangement, which is organized and managed by the federal government, works very closely with all of the provinces. We work with the province of Quebec in particular on a number of the disasters that have impacted on that community. Mr. Speaker, we have always been there for them, and when those receipts are submitted to the government for reimbursement, we've been able to act expeditiously in every case.
The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, Quebec and municipalities are still drawing a list of the damage they suffered from the ice storm. But no need to wait. Ottawa already owes Quebec $484 million from the last storm. At that time, Ottawa stated that it couldn't compensate Hydro-Quebec because it said that Crown corporations are not eligible for disaster assistance. That's become an embarrassing excuse now that we've seen the federal government investing billions of dollars in Muskrat Falls in Newfoundland. Quebec is just asking for its fair share in order to repair the damage from the ice storm. When will the federal government give us the $484 million that we are owed? The Honourable Minister of Interparliamentary Affairs. Mr. Speaker, we share our colleagues' words about our appreciation for the men and women who worked so hard in Quebec and elsewhere to restore electricity after the ice storm. We are concerned about the losses suffered, and there's an agreement between the federal government and the provinces in order to reimburse eligible costs. These are agreements that have existed for decades. We are working well with the government of Quebec. We understand the urgency of the situation, and we will take action in partnership with the government of Quebec.
Member for Lethbridge.
Based on Bill C-11 and C-18, we know that this government is abundantly committed to censoring what people can see, post, or hear online. But what we just learned is that the Prime Minister actually got a head start. You see, according to government documents that were put in place here, tabled in the House of Commons, the Liberals actually pressured social media companies a total of 214 times. 214 times over the period of 24 months. Talk about heavy-handed. Why is this government so committed to censoring speech?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, you can't spell conspiracy without CPC. Another day, another conspiracy theory. Once again, Conservatives choose to abandon our creators. They stand up for big tech companies and they turn their backs on our culture. But we choose to stand up for it. We believe foreign tech giants should do more for our creators. Canadians have the best stories to tell, and it's supporting hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs. We'll always stand up for creators and artists on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker.
Lethbridge.
Certain is that this government will do all that it can to dodge or deflect questions that it doesn't want to answer. There's nothing conspiratorial about a document that was tabled right here in the House of Commons that shows that this government pressured social media platforms 214 times within 24 months to remove content that it simply found embarrassing or didn't want the public to be aware of. So I'll ask again, why is this government so hell-bent on censoring freedom of speech in the country of Canada?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, it's absolutely preposterous, the suggestion that the Honourable Member is making. Conservatives want to protect the status quo. They don't think that foreign tech giants should stand up for our culture and pay into Canadian culture, but we disagree. We believe tech giants should do more for artists, should do more for creators, more for our local media, and more to protect our children online. We're open to criticism, we're open for changes, but we're not open to doing nothing, which is what the Conservative Party of Canada suggests.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, a written question was tabled by the member for Niagara West Glanbrook, and we learned that this Liberal government, over 2 years, on 214 occasions, asked the web giants to withdraw information posted by Canadians. That's this government's direct choice to censor Canadians. So a simple question. Why is this government once again censoring Canadians 214 times online? The Honourable Minister of Tourism. Mr. Speaker, it is irresponsible to suggest that this government is in the business of censoring Canadian speech. We are here to defend families, protect children online, make sure that web giants are paying into the Canadian Media Fund. We are here for creators, for Canadians, and not in order to support this unacceptable conservative tagline, which they say is free speech. The Honourable Member for Halifax West. Mr. Speaker, Canadians, like everyone around the world, are feeling the effects of global inflation. Canada's inflation rate has continued to diminish over the last 8 months. But the rate is still too high. Can the Minister of Tourism tell this House how Budget 2023 will help Canadian families to make ends meet? The Honourable Minister of Tourism. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Halifax West for her question and all of the hard work that she's been carrying out on behalf of Canadian families. The new grocery rebate will help 11 million Canadians to face the increase in the cost of living. It will put hundreds of dollars into their pockets and will ensure that there is more money for them to help feed their families. It is disappointing to see that the Conservatives will be voting against the budget and this significant support. We will continue to fight for Canadians.
For Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Years of restraint, cost-cutting, downsizing, and deferred investments have meant that Canada's defence capabilities have atrophied. That's a direct quote from a letter from over 50 of Canada's former cabinet ministers, defence experts, and military leaders. They're calling on this government to live up to our responsibilities to protect Canadians against all threats, foreign and domestic. But due to this government's lack of investment in demoralizing policies, we are short 10,000 troops today and over 4,200 military procurement staff. Wow. Enough is enough. Why aren't these Liberals supporting our military heroes?
Exactly. The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, unlike the Conservatives who let defence spending dip below 1%, our government will continue to make investments in our military and in defence spending.
Hear, hear.
For example, we're increasing defence spending by 70% beginning in 2017. We invested over $8 billion in defence spending in Budget 2022 and almost $40 billion, Mr. Speaker, in continental defence and NORAD modernization. We will always be there for the Canadian Armed Forces and the security of Canada.
The honourable member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Dodge, dither, and delay. That's the Liberal way. Now, this is a call for action from former Liberal and Conservative politicians, as well as non-partisan defense experts. They say Russia's brutal war in Ukraine, as well as a continuing expansion of the military arsenals of authoritarian regimes, should have prompted a major reassessment of our defense posture. Sadly, well-connected consultants, big bankers, and wealthy bondholders get more from this government than our troops. When will the Prime Minister take our defense and national security seriously and safeguard our peace, prosperity, and way of life?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if my honourable colleague heard the billions of dollars that I just mentioned, including almost $40 billion in NORAD modernization and defence spending. But let me assure this House that our government is undertaking a defence policy update. We are consulting broadly with stakeholders, and we will be back with additional plans to ensure that the Canadian Armed Forces and the defence of Canada is undertaken with the utmost integrity and stability. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
Elver poachers are still fishing on the rivers in Nova Scotia, even though the minister shut the fishery down on the weekend. DFO enforcement for 2 years has been told not to arrest, just to observe. Shockingly, the government was surprised that thousands of poachers showed up instead. It's beyond ridiculous that the minister shut down the fishery because the poachers caught the quota, not the license holders, while DFO stood by and didn't enforce the law. Why are Liberals supporting criminals continuing to fish elvers while stopping legal harvesters?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
I think the member has his facts backwards. In fact, this year, we more than doubled enforcement capacity. We worked collaboratively with the RCMP to ensure that that it was even stronger enforcement. But Mr. Speaker, my primary responsibility is the safety of people and conservation of this species, and that's why I shut the fisheries down.
The honourable member for Mississauga East Cooksville.
Mr. Speaker, many Canadians are having a tough time with the cost of living, and that's why it was so important to see measures in this year's budget to support families. I've heard from constituents about the high cost of food and what it's putting, the strain it's putting on family household finances. Could the Minister of Family, Children and Social Development please update this House on what's being done to make life more affordable for these families? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague from Mississauga East Cooksville for the important question. All members in this House are aware, because we've heard from constituents right across this country how challenging these times are, and that's why our government has acted yet again in Budget 2023. In addition to several measures that have been in place this year as well as previously, we brought forward the grocery rebate, which could provide up to $460 for a family of 4 or $220 for seniors or single individuals. We know, Mr. Speaker, that for the 11 million Canadians that are going to receive the grocery rebate, that this will go a long way. We're continuing to be there to support Canadians through these tough economic times. We understand the high cost of food is having an impact, and we'll continue to be there for them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
There was a devastating fire in Webequie First Nation last week, and now 8 people are homeless. And like the tragic fire death last month in Pewanik, the community had no fire truck, no fire hall, no equipment. Now, Webequie just happens to be in the heart of the Ring of Fire, and Doug Ford has promised to personally drive a bulldozer across their lands to dig up their wealth for investors. Meanwhile, people in Webequie have no safe drinking water, they live in substandard homes, and they have no fire protection to keep their children safe. So to the Minister, will she commit today to a proper fire hall, life-saving equipment, and proper homes for people in Webequie First Nation?
The Honourable Minister of Indigenous Services.
Speaker, I thank the member
for his constant advocacy for equity for First Nations people. He's absolutely right. We all have to do better to make sure that every single person across this country has a fair chance at success, and that's why my department and the Government of Canada is investing historic amounts in First Nations housing, in child welfare, in education, in all the infrastructure that is significantly lacking, like in Webequie. And yes, Mr. Speaker, I will commit to the member to work with Webequie to make sure that it can better protect its citizens.
The honourable member for Richmond North Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago, I asked the Prime Minister a question about whether he approves of the Governor General's expenses when she traveled to Germany for 4 days, which cost $700,000, and another trip to the Middle East where she spent more than $2,600 for meals on the plane for each person in her 30-person delegation. But the answer that I received from the parliamentary secretary was disconcerting. He justified this by saying that the expenses were about the same as those from previous governors general. So I would like to repeat my question to the Prime Minister. Does he agree with this indecent spending, yes or no? The Honourable Minister for Interparliamentary Affairs. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and our colleagues have been very clear. We think that Rideau Hall, like all federal government institutions, should properly manage taxpayer money. We know that Rideau Hall has re-examined this type of expense with their partners in the armed forces and at the Department of Global Affairs. We will continue to ensure that all expenses are reasonable and necessary.
C'est tout le temps que nous avons pour la période de questions.
That's all the time we have for questions today.
If I can have your attention, I wish to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the Right Honourable Alison Johnston, Presiding Officer of the Scottish Parliament.